Good evening, everybody. Matt Emroy back once again. Back to you, what is this, September 3rd, the day after Labor Day, 2019. Hope you guys all had a fantastic Labor Day. I know that I did. I know I haven't been making too many videos here. Well, there's a good reason for that. And if you read what I wrote in the description, you'll probably have already known what that reason is. But suffice to say, we've been having a fantastic time with the family here. This is going to be our 6th day. See if you can hear it. Okay, so it is officially 6 o'clock by the big clock tower in the middle of town. Yeah, you know, I really want to do more vlog style videos when I was here, but time just did not allow it. We had a lot of things to do around the house. I'm going to try to do one tomorrow because I want to show you what we've been up to helping my uncle around the house. Mainly, we have been pulling and weeding the gardens. This house is very long and narrow, if you remember it from earlier vlogs. And we had to go from the front to the back, basically, and just weed the entire garden. We had like big, humongous trees growing in just the garden. I mean, we had this one, we believe it was some type of maple tree that had grown about 20 feet, and we just had an opportunity to actually cut it down. And I hope my uncle doesn't mind me telling you a story, but we had kind of a disaster yesterday. I was cooking dinner last night, and all of a sudden I noticed that the stove went off, like the gas was off. Well, come to find out, they were trimming around that area because in this house, it's not natural gas. They actually have a big propane tank outside with a line coming in the house. Well, whoever installed the propane tank originally didn't feed the line against the house like you should. They actually just laid it on the ground. And when my uncle was using the chainsaw, he actually cut into the line. So we had a little bit of an issue last night. Luckily, there were no problems. They shut the propane off real quick. We called the propane guys to come out that night. They fixed it, bada bing, bada boom. We were up and running again this morning. So a little bit of a scary situation there. Pretty much everything happened yesterday, to be honest with you. I have been taking quite a few bike rides while I was here. As a matter of fact, I just got back from about an 8-mile bike ride after dinner, because that's the other thing. When you are on vacation, you tend to eat a lot of food. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been kind of pigging out a little bit. I don't think I've gained any weight. As a matter of fact, I know I haven't gained any weight because I can kind of judge that by how my pants and my belt fits. But the opposite side of that is the more you eat, the more you have to exercise. So I have been constantly on the go exercising, where it being bike riding, walking, gardening, doing something to burn off all those calories that I have been ingesting while I was here. And of course, when we get back home, it's going to be business as usual. So no more sweet treats. I've been eating carrot cake since I've been here. I've been eating this brownie cake. I've been eating ice cream. I've been eating rice pudding. I had a huge pasta dinner tonight that was unbelievable. A few nights ago, I cooked up some eggplant parmesan from the eggplant that we got from Frog Pond Farms. And I had a little bit of that tonight. And I had some of this capitelli, something like that, pasta that we got from Aldi. And I had a little bit of that in Alfredo sauce and a little bit in marinara sauce. I had some of the sausage that we picked up from a little roadside Mennonite stand in Bainbridge. This was garlic sweet sausage. Sauteed that up heavenly. So suffice to say, I've been injecting probably 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day since I've been here. But I am also working out and working off all those calories. So When I get home, I get back on my normal routine. I won't have to exercise quite as much because I won't be putting so much junk inside of my body. Here, Eric Brunhammer says, hero. I am a hero, holding on to a hero to the end of the night. How many of you guys remember that song? Chris Bartlett is here. Yes, Chris, I'm glad you mentioned that. He's looking behind me, over here to the wall of computers. Believe it or not, those are the computers that I am not going to be bringing home. Let me see if I can get you a better picture right there. There you go. So that TV is blocking the bottom row. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6, 12, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 computers there. Now that's all from that computer haul that I got when I went over to Bainbridge that day. And I wound up getting a total of 40 computers. Now, most of those systems are going to have to stay here until the next time we come up. I just don't have the room in the Tahoe to bring those back. I'm going to try to put a few more in there if I can, but I also have a wall of about the same amount of computers downstairs that will be going home with me. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly what I paid for those, but it was in the hundreds of dollars. I don't know if you guys got that or not. But suffice it to say, they are older systems. Some, about 6 or 7 of them, were Windows 7 systems. The rest have Vista stickers. So when I go to refurbish them, I'll have to get Windows 7 COAs. But they're all Core 2 Duos, so they're all still decent computers. And that's something that a lot of people have been asking me recently. They're saying, Matt, what are you doing with these Core 2 Duos? I mean, they're old school. They're old computers. I'm like, yes. But people out there still need computers like that. A lot of my clients will buy those computers because they're still good for internet use, watching YouTube videos. You throw in a good video card in there, something like Radeon HD 8 or 9000 series card. Nothing crazy high end. Be able to watch high def videos. Heck, I know people that are still editing videos, like doing 1080p, not 4K, but 1080p video editing with rigs just like that. So you do the math. On average, I'll probably get anywhere between 140 to 180 a piece for those computers, bearing in mind they will be upgraded. I'll pair them with a monitor, keyboard, mouse, probably add Office onto them. So whoever buys it's going to be getting a really good deal. And of course, I'll be making a good profit on each of these computers. Would I like to get newer systems? Yes. And I do get a lot of newer systems in from time to time. But when a deal like that pops up where I got every one of those systems for, well, when I do the math, it probably winds up being about $4 or $5 a piece. I just couldn't say no. And to top it all off, I can't remember if I showed you guys or not, but he included an entire box. I'm talking about a humongous shoebox full of memory. A lot of it was DDR2, some DDR, but there were quite a few DDR3 sticks in there. As a matter of fact, I have a bag downstairs, which I might have Mom bring up that I could show you that I got in memory alone. So in that particular deal, what I paid for everything, the memory was worth it alone. So there are deals like that out there. You just got to keep your eyes open. Yes, Chris, absolutely. I'm glad you asked it. He goes, will people buy these? They're from 2008, 2009, and Core 2 Duos. Believe it or not, most of these systems are actually from 2010, 2011, even the Vista ones. I think that the college, for whatever reason, ordered them with Vista, even though Windows 7 had already been released. But yes, it is provided you do the right upgrades. None of these had hard drives, so I'll have to put hard drives in the computers. I'm going to be upgrading the memory, again, put on Windows 10 Professional, which every one of these computers is capable of running. And again, you can get 180, maybe 200 a piece on a good day, depending on what kind of monitors you pair it with. Put Linux on them. Now, because they're not going to be worth anything if I do that. Yeah, I could put Linux on there and maybe sell them for $30 or $40, but you got to remember something. It's what you add to it. It's what we call added value. Again, computers like that, I'm going to say it one more time, with the right upgrades paired with the right monitor, keyboard, and mouse, I fully expect to get $120 to $180 a piece for those. Easy, 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 easy. Chris Bartlett goes, I need that RAM DDR2 for the old ones. I got my P3 working good. Send me a message. I'll have to go through the memory because honestly, a lot of it was in that shoebox and it was really dirty. So I'm going to have to mem test every one of those sticks. But chances are most of them should be fine. Eric goes, I'm doing more with lawn and garden equipment lately, doing the same thing. Well, there you go. Whatever works for you. This is just the old reselling game, and it just depends on what your passions are. I love working with computers. Old, new, it doesn't matter. And I like setting computers up for people that maybe don't have a lot of money or don't need to go out and buy a brand new computer, spend $500, $600, $700 on a brand new computer. I'll give you a great example. A computer like that, most of those are Dell Optiplex 780s, DDR3, Core 2 Duos. Believe it or not, I can make that computer about 30% faster than your bargain basement desktop that you would find in Best Buy or Office Max, and you would still have to pay $300, $400, $500 for. Because a lot of those computers, believe it or not, folks, are single core, maybe dual cores, but they're at very low clock speeds. Most of these have Core 2 Duo E8400s or 7500s, which have native clock speeds of the 7500s have 2.93 gigahertz, and I think the 8400s are 3.06 gigahertz. Whereas a lot of your bargain basement PCs running dual cores, if they are running dual cores, will clock in somewhere around 1.5 to 1.6 gigahertz. So they're actually, the people that are buying these computers are actually getting a bargain when you consider the raw power of the processor. Mrs. Sue L. Matt, Tony T's is a very good Italian restaurant on Canal Street there in Greene, New York. Pizza and cannoli. I would be happy with just one of their salads with a cannoli for dessert. Real New York. I have to agree. And without giving my uncle's exact address away, we are within walking distance of Tony T's. I mean, I have been there before. I've never had their desserts, but one of my favorite dishes from Tony T's is their bacon and speedy pizza. Now, it's a white pie. It's got like a ranch Alfredo dressing, cheese on top, bits of bacon, and a little bit of chicken on top of that. That was so good. And that is something you can only find at Tony T's. Awesome Computers asks, could I sell an HP ProDesk LGA 1150 Core i3 4160 with 8 gigabytes of RAM and a 500 gig hard drive that I found in the trash? Oh, yeah, absolutely. So let's see. It's an i3 4th gen, 8 gigs of RAM with a 500 gig hard drive. I would say if you pair that with a good monitor, keyboard, mouse, make sure you got a wireless card in there. I would probably ask about $220 to $240 for that. But make sure you load Windows 10, a fresh install of Windows 10 on there, and Microsoft Office if you can. And yeah, you should be able to get a good amount of money for that. Chris Bartlett, thank you for making that point. He goes, SSDs are only $50 now. And believe it or not, they can be even cheaper than that. I went to Best Buy before we came here, and I picked up 2 SanDisk SSD Pluses, 240 gigabytes, and they were on sale for $38.99 a piece. And that is another good option. If you're trying to refurbish computers like I am, and they're a little bit on the older side, throw it in SSD. Believe it or not, you can get $50 to $100 more with an SSD, because as soon as people see SSD in that listing, they're willing to spend more money because they know that is going to be a very fast computer. William McCullough goes, hello from Portsmouth, Virginia. Hello to you, William. I hope you're doing well. I've been following you a little bit on Facebook, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Parents were in Cortland in the late 1800s. Yeah, I know Cortland. Some of my favorite apples when I used to eat apples. I loved Cortland apples. Kind of a hybrid, a cross between like a not a red delicious, golden delicious, and a Macintosh apple. Kind of semi-tart, semi-sweet. Eric goes, I almost bought some ultra Chinese SSDs off eBay, but didn't want to wait for them. They were $12. LOL. Yeah, you'll be waiting a couple of months for those, and chances are they'll probably be junk. I know people that have bought solid state hard drives off of eBay, and 9 times out of 10 they have errors, or they're not the the size that was advertised. Like you may have said 240 gig San Quan or San something, San Sui SSD. When you get it there, it might have been cheap. When you get it home and test it, maybe it might only be 60 or 80 gigabytes. Awesome computers. If I beef it up with an SSD and a low-profile GPU like a 1030 or a 730 and an i5, will it go for a lot more? No. I want to be very clear on this. You want to be very selective about your upgrades, because if you start upgrading the CPU dramatically, like going from i3 to i5, and then you start putting in more expensive parts like a high-end graphics card, like I would consider a GT 1030 pretty high-end card, your chances are you're not going to recoup your money. So be selective about your upgrades. Something like that, maybe an SSD, but I would probably hold off on doing the video card upgrade. You're just not going to get your money back. I love it. Eric goes, it was going to be for an episode of Don't Buy This, LOL. I love that. Eric, I want to see that series. I've seen other YouTubers do that, and I love those series. Basically what it is, for those of you that don't know, these people will buy products that they know they shouldn't buy, but they want to do it to review, so you out there will know not to buy them yourselves. It's kind of like saving you money in the long run. Chris goes, I will donate a video card, MSI Radeon HD 6410. Absolutely. Those cards are really decent, and I will tell you, and I'm going to do a search for it really quickly on eBay. The cards that I have been buying, and you can get these in low profile or full height, are the Radeon 8490s, and you can get really good deals on them. Let me see if I could find the ones that I've been looking at. Here you go. Just give you an example. Here's a listing, a lot of 6 AMD Radeon HD 8490. These are 1 gigabyte video cards, DisplayPort and DVI. So it is kind of a pain. If you get these, you will most likely have to get a DisplayPort to DVI adapter, but I don't mind. When I got that computer hall back in Virginia, I got a ton of those. So for me, it actually works out nicely. These are 6 of them for $50 or best offer and $11.55 shipping. So if you were to send them an offer of like $40, they'd probably take it. So what does that make it? $50 for 6 of them. So let's do the math there. I am not good at doing math in my head, so let me do this real quick. All right, so yeah, about $8 a piece, and that is a good buy. That is something you could buy to put in a computer like these over here, and that $8 that you spent will probably add $30 or $40 to the overall value of the computer once it's refurbished. So just giving you guys ideas of something maybe that you can do in your area. And I did share the link to that eBay site, so you guys can take a look at that if you'd like. Robert Jones asks, Matt, what would you suggest if I am unable to update my BIOS from the manufacturer of the motherboard? Okay. This is something that frustrates me to no end. If you have computers that are mass produced, like the ones over here, like the Dell Optiplex 780, 760s, pretty much all the Optiplex series, it's really easy to update the BIOS. You go to Dell's website, you go to the driver section, you type in whatever your model is, and right there you will see the latest BIOS. You can download it and you can install it. Bada bing, bada boom. It's all done. If you have a computer that you built or a computer that was a system that somebody built, like at a computer shop, has something like a gigabit motherboard or more obscure like an ECS Elite Systems board, you're at the mercy of that motherboard manufacturer's website, basically. And I have seen many, many times where I needed to update the BIOS on one of those boards. Went to that motherboard manufacturer's website, whatever it is, tried to find the BIOS for it, and either there wasn't one or there was one there to download, but the file was corrupted. If that is your case, then you are pretty much SOL. And I'm not going to spell it out. SOL just means there really isn't anything that you can do. This is kind of a pet peeve or a bugaboo of mine, as some people would say. I think the reason that this happens is the cheaper manufacturers, especially the manufacturers of the cheaper motherboards like ECS motherboards, MCS motherboards, they just don't have the resources to keep their driver databases updated. So who loses out in the end? We do. BCOB, what is the cheapest route for a fresh copy of Windows 10? eBay. And all you have to do is buy the license. You don't need to buy a new copy of Windows 10. I mean, you could download the Windows 10 Media Creation Tool. And if you just buy a license, you basically install Windows 10. What I would recommend doing is when you do the installation, if you know what license you bought, and usually it's going to be Windows 10 Pro. You go on eBay, you buy your Windows 10 Pro license. You don't enter that license or product key when you first install Windows 10. You just choose that. You go underneath where it asks you enter the product key. You click, I don't have one. Then you choose the version of Windows that you're going to install. Install Windows, and then once you have everything installed, all your hardware the way you want it, everything updated, then go ahead and enter your new product key in. And the reason I say that is, believe it or not, I've run into situations where I've installed Windows, put the product key in right in the beginning in the installation process, and then later on, after Windows installed, I decided to upgrade the CPU or the video card or maybe add some memory. And believe it or not, that has actually kicked out my activation. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. So just take that little top tip from me. Make sure that you put your product key in after you've installed Windows. Eric goes, I'm about to run into my house and switch to my computer. That's fine. Absolutely. You'd probably be able to hear me better too. Okay, I was going to ask that. Am I coming through clearly? Because I'm actually using my HP, what is this, my ProBook. So I don't know how clear this is compared to the webcam that I use at home. They're not always OEM keys. I mean, you can use an OEM key if you want, but there are other options on there as well. Oh my gosh, PC chips. Yeah, that's the other one that you're going to have trouble with. Oh yeah, for sure. And again, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they just don't have the resources to keep the databases up to date. Okay, I want to change topics here for a minute because I know a lot of you guys are probably really curious about how the Tahoe is doing. As most of you guys probably know by now, I actually took my 1996 Chevy Tahoe LS up here for this trip. I was a little nervous. It is an older vehicle, and it has quite a few miles. As a matter of fact, just about 10 miles ago when we took our quick side trip down to Norwich, it turned 229,000 miles. So this has been a well-used vehicle, but not abused. These are mostly highway miles. Give you a couple of issues that I've had on the way up. Nothing major, thankfully. The first one being my four-wheel drive control module, or not the control module, the four-wheel drive switch. Mine does not actually have the lever. Mine has the electronic switch where you can go from two-wheel drive to four high to four low. That switch bank is actually starting to go bad. The reason I can tell that is sometimes when I'm driving, I notice that the light for the two-wheel drive goes off. Luckily, it doesn't affect the way it drives, but I think there's probably just a short in that switch bank. No big deal. As a matter of fact, I have an extra one at home sitting in the shed because when I went to pick and pull a month ago, I foresaw this very circumstance because apparently this is a major issue with those, and I pulled an extra one. So not really in any hurry, but next time I have the dash out, I'll go ahead and swap that in. Second issue that I've had, when I was making a short trip from here over to Boudreaux's Bistro, which is only a few miles away, to eat basically lunch one day, the ABS light came on. And I was really concerned because I had never had that happen to me with any vehicle. Well, to make a long story short, the light kept coming on for about a day. And I knew that the issue had to be the wheel speed sensor because the light didn't actually come on until the vehicle started rolling. And, I had been in some mud earlier. I actually went off-roading a little bit with it. And I figured probably what happened was I got some mud kicked up in the wheel speed sensor, and it probably caused a intermittent error. And I said, it's no big deal. When I get home, I'll go ahead and just pay my mechanic to switch out the ABS wheel speed sensors. Well, I came out the next day, and would you know it? Problem fixed itself. No more ABS light. Now, does that mean it's never going to come on again? No, it probably means that the sensor is getting old, and eventually it's going to become an issue. So I'll probably still have to get it changed out. But luckily, everything's working just fine now. And that's it. Those are the only two minor issues I had taking that 1996 Chevy Tahoe up here with almost 230,000 miles. I must say, I really do enjoy driving that vehicle. Chris Carrick goes, it's a Chevy, it will make it. I like Chevys, don't get me wrong, but I also like Fords. I am not a diehard Chevy guy, and I'm not a diehard Ford guy. To be brutally honest with you guys, if I had to lean more one way for many years, I probably did lean more towards the Fords versus the Chevys. And that's the only reason is my father, being a 30-year ASE certified master tech, always told me that Fords were better for basically hard work. In other words, towing, hauling. If you're really going to use and abuse a truck, Ford's a better option. The Chevy is a good vehicle overall, much actually nicer, smoother riding, but generally they don't hold up as well to the use or the abuse. I know I might get some hate out there. Please, the Chevy lovers here, don't hate on me too much. That is just my opinion. I'm not stating any facts here. But all that being said, I do really enjoy the Tahoe, and I think for the price I paid for it, $1,000, even if I got home and the thing fell apart and I had to scrap it, I still got my money's worth out of it. So I am very happy with that vehicle. Eric Brunhammer goes, my S10 has 300K and I'm about to drive it to Columbia, Virginia. Then it goes, if all goes well, I'll be driving to Tennessee while towing a trailer. Yeah, and the thing is, the older vehicles in many ways are more reliable. They don't have all of the technology that a lot of these modern cars do. They don't have the car, the in-dash navigation, the Android, what do they call it? The Android Play, the Apple Play. And true story. One of my neighbors has a 2011, I think it is, Lincoln MKZ. It's the SUV that has all the bells and whistles. She was driving down the road one day and the whole thing just cut off for no reason. And I'm not saying that a battery died, just there was no power whatsoever in the vehicle. They tried to jump start it, couldn't get it running again. She was stuck there for a couple hours. As mysteriously as it died, that's how mysteriously about 2 hours later it came back to life. So with these new vehicles, you get these weird, odd problems. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I would much rather drive an older vehicle. And that is why I am still very much considering getting rid of the Chrysler Town and Country. Awesome computers go, American cars are great. My dad had a 2010 Ford Edge and it's still going strong for about 10 years now. I don't know why people hate on American vehicles so much. And yeah, in years past, you go back to the 80s and 90s, I would have to say the Japanese vehicles had a leg up on most of the American-made vehicles. But nowadays, it's even money. They're one is as good as the other. Eric Brunhammer goes, I'm an old school GM guy. This 2018 will probably be the last new GM product I'll ever buy. New truck will be a Tundra. No, next truck will be a Tundra. Sorry, I missed that. I'm not going to comment on that because a lot of you guys know, well, I'm going to leave it at that. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. Thank you. Not that I've ever used either one of them. Chris Garrett goes, I like the F-Series Ford trucks from the early 90s. I'd have to add the late 80s into that, too. Anything that Ford produced pretty much 1986 to maybe 96. Then they started getting weird. They started getting the body styles just kind of got too girly looking for me. And that's when they started using the cheaper metal, too. If you look at 1989 or an 88, F-150 versus like a 97, 98 F-150 been in the north, chances are the 98 will be all rotted out and the 88 will probably have some rust, but probably will still have a decent body. The rockers won't be all rotted out. Maybe the frame will still be in good shape. Just use better metal back then. Awesome Computers goes, a car better last at least 20 years of heavy usage to be worth it. If you buy it brand new. I mean, you got to kind of add that in, take that into account. You can't expect to buy a used vehicle for $1,000, $2,000 and get 20 years of hard labor out of it. It's just not going to happen. Now, there are exceptions to that. I mean, look at Scotty Kilmer. I mean, what did he pay, like $300 or $400 for that Toyota Celica he had? And he's had that for close to, I think he said like 15 years. But he does a lot. He does all his maintenance on that too. The average person that buys a car used, a low-end car, $1,000, $2,000, is not going to be doing a lot of the heavy-duty work themselves. They might do their oil changes. Yeah, maybe they'll do their own transmission services, basic maintenance, stuff like that. Maybe some people would feel comfortable like changing an alternator or a starter. But chances are you might get 3, 4, 5 years out of a vehicle like that. Okay, yeah, I kind of figured when you said that you meant new, but yeah, I mean, I wanted to clear that up because I didn't want somebody to take away from this that I am saying that you could go out and buy yourself a beater like I do and get 20 years out of it. Just chances are it's never going to happen. Samuel Heron, morning, home from work, cook guts, so get to watch it live. I don't understand that. Home from work, crook. I'm sorry, I don't understand what you were saying there. Awesome computers. People in my neighborhood get a new car every 2 years, and I think that's silly. Well, it depends on how they get it. If you are like some people that I know, they'll lease a car, and that can actually be a really good option because you're pretty much always having almost a brand new vehicle. And there are very favorable lease options out there. I mean, I know places you can lease like a new Toyota Corolla or even a Camry for like $250 a month. And you might think, well, that's a car payment. Yeah, that's true. But you got to remember, you're not really responsible for a lot of the repairs. Most of everything is under warranty. So you take it into the dealer if something major happens. A lot of dealers that lease these cars will include lifetime oil changes, lifetime maintenance. So you're really not paying anything extra. Whereas if you buy a car and you're making car payments, you're responsible for things like oil changes, transmission services, regular maintenance items, even tires a lot of times are thrown in with that lease agreement. So it depends on what type of person you are. If you are a professional that maybe drives on the highway a lot, maybe it drives to and from work all the time, then yeah, leasing might be a really good option. If you make a lot of money, let's say you make 50, 100 grand a year, yeah, by all means, I would say lease it. Leasing would not be a good option for me. I don't really drive all that much, so I'd probably be paying a lot more money than I would need to. I've never heard that. Cook guts, New Zealand slang meaning stomach upset. Okay, I never heard that before. What do we say here? Well, other than saying like an upset stomach, we say we have a sour stomach or a tummy ache if you're younger. But yeah, honestly, I've had a few of those lately myself, eating the way that I've been eating. Kind of shame on me, but you know what? It's a vacation. You really got to treat yourself on vacation, but it's going to be back to business as usual with my lifestyle change when we get home. Eric Brunhammer, leases are great for people who barely drive. Yeah. And again, I'm talking about people that maybe go to and from work and that's about it. A lot of people, yuppies, you ever heard that slang? Young urban professionals. Most of them will lease a car if they even have a car because, again, normally all they're doing with their car is driving to and from work. A lot of times they go shopping. They live close enough. They live in an urban area, so they live within a few miles of their store. So they're either bike riding or walking to the grocery store. But if you live out in the country, like if you lived here, leasing a car would be asinine because chances are you have to drive at least 45 minutes to an hour to work, and there are mileage restrictions when you lease a vehicle, and you'd probably be going way over those mileage restrictions and paying huge penalties. Eric goes, they asked me if I wanted to lease, then thinking about putting 97K on the Envoy in 3 years. No, LOL. Yeah, again, just a great example. If you drive a lot, leasing is definitely not a good option. And, you know, and this is something that I've wanted to talk a little bit about, because a lot of you, I've had mixed reviews on the Tahoe. Some of you have said, oh man, that's a great vehicle. I can't believe you only paid $1,000 for that. You got to keep that thing until it dies. And then I have the other people saying, oh, why did you buy that thing? The paint is all faded on the hood and the roof. Oh, that thing's so ugly. I'm somewhere in the middle when it comes to that. You got to remember, beater vehicles are just that. They're designed to be used and abused. Would I have liked to have gotten a Tahoe that had a nicer paint job, maybe a little bit newer, not even a little bit newer, take that off the table, just something with a nicer paint job? Yes. But, and I looked for those, but this is what I found. The ones that had the really nice paint job, looked really good on the outside, were total basket cases mechanically. They had transmission issues. They had engine ticking or knocking issues. They had the interior trashed. See, you kind of got to weigh the pros and cons. My vehicle, although the exterior, is faded, the interior is in decent shape. There are a few issues with the headliner sagging in places, but other than that, the interior is actually very clean. And the more important part is mechanically, it is 100%. And that is the most important thing when buying a vehicle. And I think a lot of our society forgets that now. I remember an episode of Roseanne where Dan was talking to Jackie, and he said that they were reminiscing about him helping her buy her first vehicle. And Dan is like, here, this is a really nice, solid, reliable vehicle. And Jackie was like, oh, but it's so ugly. It's old. The paint's all faded. And then if he said, yeah, you want a shiny new piece of crap that looked great but barely ran. And that's a great example. As a society, we try to keep up with the Joneses. We try to get things that look the best, but maybe are not necessarily the best for us. So in my opinion, for those of you out there, if you're looking for a good second vehicle, don't necessarily get one that looks good on the outside. Make sure that it is mechanically sound. Eric goes, like I told you, around here, even with that paint, it would have been a $3,500 vehicle. I don't doubt it. As a matter of fact, we're going to be visiting some friends of ours right outside of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And being that is a four-wheel drive vehicle, I fully expect the person that we're visiting to try to convince me to keep it there and have him sell it, because they're always looking for good running four-wheel drive vehicles. And my Tahoe needs nothing. Yeah, sure, there are things that you could do to it to make it look better, but mechanically, that thing is 100%. Maybe a 1970 Ford F-150. I did like those. They're getting hard to find because the ones that haven't been fully restored and are being garaged and trailered to car shows have been worked to death and are now sitting in landfills. You can't really find one that is like a regular everyday driver. They're just not out there, at least in my area. You can find some of the later Ford F-Series trucks, like the 74s to like 79s. Those you can still find for a couple thousand. And yeah, they make really good, they can make good daily drivers. But remember, you're buying a vehicle that has a carbureted motor. Chances are it's a, what would have been in that? Like a what is it, a Windsor or a Cleveland 355, I think they were. You got to remember something. Those things were gas hogs. You think my Tahoe is hard on gas? My dad had a 78 crew cab Ford F-250 with the 355 Cleveland, I think it was on that. And that was actually a 4-speed manual. And on a good day, that we're talking mostly highway driving, you would get about 10 miles a gallon max. Around town, 5 or 6. It's another thing I wanted to tell you guys. The Tahoe, I calculated the miles per gallon, the MPG that I was getting on the trip. I averaged 16.2 miles per gallon, which for those of you who know those engines, those 5.7 Vortec V8s, it's actually pretty good, especially for one with that kind of miles on it. That just means when they rebuilt that engine, they did it right. They rebuilt it properly. There are no valve leaks or issues like that, because if there were, I wouldn't be getting that kind of mileage. Chris Garrett asks, how long are you staying in Greene? Hurricane Dorian is headed up the East Coast. Yes, it is, but the latest track keeps it far enough off the coast to where I think the winds in our neck of the woods are only get up to about 25, 30 miles an hour, and it's going to be mostly rain, so it's not a big deal for us. We've been up here since last Wednesday. We'll be leaving probably Thursday morning, getting home sometime Friday. Eric goes, my favorite body of the F-150 is 1978. The front end is so beautiful. I absolutely have to agree 100%. That's when they cleaned up the front. They added a lot of chrome. They removed a lot of that extra. They removed a few of the what do they call it? The rectangular shapes. They added some more chrome to it, and that was the last year of the round headlights. In '79, they went to the square headlights or the rectangular headlights. Totally agree, Eric. I love the look of that truck. Chris Garrett says, my 2013 Dodge Ram would get about 19 mpg. It's not bad. Not bad at all. Samuel Aaron has a 97 Mazda 323. Well, let's see. He'd get the best mileage of all. Depending on the engine, you would probably average on a trip maybe 32 to 35 mpg with that vehicle. I don't think they had the rotary engine in that. Those were terrible on fuel. Absolutely atrocious. Yeah, Eric, don't rub it in. I know what your 2018 Silverado gets. I remember that. That it amazes me how these modern vehicles can get so much better gas mileage. But again, I just don't want the electrical problems that come with owning a more modern vehicle. My goal is to try to stay as close to the year 2000 as possible. You know, my LeSabre is a 2000. Even that's a little bit more high tech than I would actually like, because that's got the built-in car computer. That has a what do they call it? A flyby accelerator, where the accelerator is not actually, there's no actual accelerator cable. It's computer controlled. So it's about as new as I would like to get. Robert Jones says, I miss my GMC Sonoma. Yeah, I was just watching Auto Auction Rebuilds. He just finished rebuilding a 2002, I think it was, GMC Sonoma, which is basically the same thing as an S10. He put a bunch of work into it, and I think he's actually decided to keep it, because for the longest time, he's been talking about needing a personal truck, and he loves it. I mean, they're good on fuel. Pretty reliable, though he had the fuel pump go out. If you ever watched his vehicle about changing that out, that was an experience. Man on YouTube, Fair Point Farms. He drove an old VW truck across the country to North Carolina. Probably got good mileage. Yeah, I've seen people take those. My uncle and his friend, as a matter of fact, I think they took a VW Beetle, like a late 50s model, cross country back in the 70s. I mean, they were very reliable vehicles. Yeah, gutless. I mean, going up a mountain, you'd be lucky to hit 50 miles an hour. But then again, that wasn't the point. The point was to have a very reliable vehicle that you really didn't have to put a lot of money into, maintenance-wise or gas-wise. Eric Brunhammer, in Shelby County, Tennessee, there is a junkyard where every V8 engine is $250. So I will look for one of those engine trans for the S10. That would be sweet to do a V8 conversion in the S10. A lot of people do that, and man, you get a lot of extra power. I mean, compared to what, the 2.8 or the 2.4, I think it was, that they had offered in that at one time. Awesome Computers. Companies try to make efficient engines because EPA regulations and a more efficient car sells better. They do. But believe it or not, that what sells better and what's best for the consumer are two very different things. An informed consumer will realize that the more fuel economy you're getting, the more technology that is in that engine. The more technology that's in that engine, the more there is to go wrong. So take from that what you will, but not necessarily the greatest ideas. Eric goes, I had an 81 VW Rabbit pickup that had a 2002 Jetta TDI diesel drivetrain in it. I've seen people do that before. David's Farm, when he used to be on YouTube, he had a 1995 Dodge Caravan that had the drivetrain, engine, tranny, everything from a 85 Jetta. It was a turbo diesel, and man, that thing was great. He used to brag he had the only Dodge Caravan that got 50 mpg. Eric Brunhammer goes, mine is a 2.8, but I'm looking for an engine like what is in the Silverado for the S10, 355 horsepower with over 400 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, you can get one of the 5.7 Vortec 5.7s like mine up to that, but you'd have to add a cam, you'd have to get it bored and stroked. You might be better off just throwing in a 350 that somebody's done up. You get a 350 with 355 horsepower. You don't even have to do too much to it either. And I'm talking about, so there's no confusion, because technically the 5.7 liter Vortec V8 is also a 350. I'm referring to the old school Chevy 350s like you would find in like a Chevelle or a Malibu, something like that. Just so there's no confusion. Those are actually really rare, the VW Rabbit trucks. I remember the VW Rabbits that were diesel. A neighbor of mine had one, and I'll never forget, a cold winter morning, he'd get in there, turn it on, try to start it, crank it over for about 3-4 minutes, probably would start for 10 or 15 seconds, stall, turn it off, crank it over again another 2-3 minutes, and then he might get lucky and have it run from that point. But I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe that those did not actually have glow plugs in them. So that's pretty much what you had to do. Ecotech 5.3 with a pair of Hong Kong Hurricanes. That's over my pay grade. I'm not familiar at all with the Ecotechs. I would not want to go too high tech with an older vehicle like that. I mean, you could, but you better have some real deep pockets. You got all the different harness. You got to buy new harness. You got to buy electronic ignition control modules. You got to buy so many things for that. You're almost better off just going old school, sticking with a carbureted motor. Oh, excuse me. Allergies are kicking my butt up here, folks. I tell you, I love Greene. But if you are prone to allergies like I am, it's not necessarily the greatest place to live for allergies. That being said, if I had an opportunity to move here and it was financially feasible, I would do it in a heartbeat because I love this town. I love the people here. I love the atmosphere. I love the fact that I can ride my bike for an hour and a half and not hit one major hill unless I want to. Any of you guys out there that live in this town, I consider you some of the most blessed people on this planet. And I'm not the only one that says that. My aunt, my uncle, my cousins, they absolutely love living in this town. Fun fact, the people here that own the variety store, Endicott Liquidators, Mike and his wife were originally going to move out of town, and after they bought it a few years, I guess they were going to move down to Florida or something. I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story, but this stuck with me. Do you know that they've been here now for over 10 years, and the only reason they stayed is because of the people in this town, how nice and friendly, and how much of a community there is in this town. Does Greene have issues? Yeah, any little town does, but overall, this is a great place to live. Eric goes, I need to be careful. I am interviewing for a job paying about $80,000 in November. I'm already getting crazy ideas. Well, if you get that job with that kind of income, yeah, I mean, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to do crazy things, crazy builds. But I hope it happens for you. Really, I do. I've been trying to up the game myself with computer halls like this. I lead a modest life, let's say, but a very fulfilling one. Robert Jones, I don't like Dodge's version of an El Camino. I don't remember what it is called. I didn't even know Dodge had something like that. I am not a big Chrysler Dodge fan in general, especially since Fiat bought them in 2010. And yeah, I thought that my van that I purchased, my 2010 Chrysler Town Country, was before the merger. But I found out it wasn't, because when I went to do an oil change, I found out that there are two different kinds of oil filters for that. There's the standard and the metric. And guess which one mine uses? That's right, the metric. And right then and there, I knew that mine was after the Fiat buyout. Another reason that thing might be going. Hello, Max. I'm saying hi to Chris Garrett's poodle. My aunt actually brought her poodle over here the other day. I should have did a live stream, but it's really hard to do a lot of videos when you're visiting family because we don't get this. Excuse me. We don't get to see each other that often. And when we do, we like to spend time as a family. And I hope you guys will forgive me that I'm not putting out quite as much content as I usually do. It's just very important, I think, to spend time with the family. And I hope you guys enjoyed the fireworks last night. There was a finale. Don't worry, I was kind of being a little humorous when I said that they ran out of money. There was a finale. I just honestly wanted to enjoy the rest of the fireworks without live streaming, but I hope you guys got an idea of the type of Labor Day festivities that they do here. It's very, very community related. I mean, everybody in the community helps out to put this on, and it's better each year. Though I have to say, this year, because of the rain, they didn't have quite as many vendors as they would have liked. There really were only 3 or 4 vendors. But the one that was there was from Coventry, and it was a maple booth. Everything was dedicated to maple. And I wound up buying a big jug of maple syrup. I wound up buying some maple candy and a few other odds and ends. So it was, all in all, it was a very successful Labor Day celebration. Spend time with your family. Absolutely. You got to remember, we live very far away, and yeah, we try to get up here 2 or 3 times a year, but sometimes it's on the lower end. I remember a couple of years we were only able to get up here once, and it's just not enough. I mean, we really need to remember to spend time with our families and just do things together that make you happy. And that's really important. I think a lot of people forget that. Yeah, life is hard. We have issues. I have issues. You have issues, I'm sure. But you got to make life fun. And with that being said, I'm going to end the live stream here. We're at 1 hour. Hope you guys really enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more computer and technology related videos coming when I get back home. And as always, have a blessed day, everybody.